I'm going to have to talk to Maudie about going easier on you, boy.
Dwayne, you call me boy, and I've got... Oh, never mind, it's irrelevant. I by now know when Dwayne has a slow burn and he wants to try and ride me.
Charles, were you ever that relevant? And we all know by now that you haven't been for a coon's age.
The overcast sky now started to piss a little to match Dwayne's mood.
Drive me to a payphone so I can cancel the ready-mix truck of concrete for our poor.
Then we sit in my pickup and I start on my beverage of choice, a quart of chocolate milk.
I notice you drink a quart of milk every day with your lunch, and that chocolate milk that would enable me to shit through a keyhole.
Yeah, but I've cut back quite a bit on that stuff over the last 10+ years. You see, Dwayne, I used to correlate in the past that 25 to 30 quarts a week matched real close to my numerical emissions level.
Come on, Charlie, you're talking to Dwayne now. And I can do the math, and that was a fluke of a week, or maybe that's how you got one of your nicknames, Cannonball.
Hell no, Dwayne, on that fluke part, although maybe that's why some of them got on all fours, barking, hey, baby, keep those cannonballs slapping my clit. And this correlation went on for months, even into my 30s, man. But there were some special circumstances in this one encounter, and that I was drawing unemployment at the time, and she didn't work, and she was new, exciting, and everything else. We just got into a sustainable eat, sleep, and procreate every 4 to 5 hours around the clock for weeks and months on end. Regardless, I think after a while it was like a cow. If a cow missed a milking, the pressure built up. And Dwayne, dig this. I somehow got away long enough one afternoon to help a friend cut down a tricky old, large, gnarled box elder tree for cash money. I did become concerned when I realized that someone else wanted the job and knew I was drawing unemployment insurance, so stupidly or not, I told the lady at the unemployment office that I had helped a friend cut down a tree for no compensation. Or could they, asked her then, could they then say I was then unavailable for paying work for that period of time? The lady wrinkled her brow, and she said, well, technically that may be a possibility. I, feeling pretty cocky, fired back. What if I spent a whole afternoon servicing a needy lady? Recalling the incident I had at this moment, Ed, Dwayne, she just called me and without emotion looked at me and said, worse yet, Charles, what if she fired you? Would that disqualify you from benefits? And we're both laughing our ass off.
Well, you apparently didn't embarrass her, or you didn't embarrass her, get her to crawl in the hole, and in fact, she quickly had you in checkmate.
I think we both kind of wonder if there could be any repercussions in today's changing world for just asking a simple question.
Charles, I know you have really changed your lifestyle over the last few years. Has old Father Time really been that hard on you?
Well, Dwayne, I never did have much self-discipline, and many have, I guess, and feel that was a major factor in my deciding to only attend orientation week at a college campus a few days, summer after high school, and walking off campus without even checking my test results, which I know wouldn't be too bad because test-taking ability had over the years saved my ass many a time. And Dwayne, thinking back in the 9th grade, teacher Mr. Cleary, who I actually liked, can you imagine that? Called me over in the hall one day, and I thought, oh, now what? And then he told me he had a problem giving me my grade because I had a D coming, but I had written an A for the final semester test, which apparently wouldn't mesh with my regular grade. He was trying to tell me that he felt that would reflect on him as a teacher and his grading of me, so he decided to raise my D to a C, which I told him I appreciated. Well, I guess what goes around comes around, as the next year I was pissed because I received a C in history, probably the one subject I shined in. I went in to see the teacher because, believe it or not, he had told the class, if we don't agree with our grade, come in and see him for the criteria and debate and receive an explanation or possibly getting a compromised revision from him. And that, by the way, and also that was a teacher I continuously challenged. I pressed him when I went in there and after school and after I got my grade, and he lost it and said attitude is very important in life, and he could lower my grade because of my attitude by 2 full grades from an A to a C. We also had a 1 through 3 side grade for effort and deportment and such, and I just looked old Baldy in the eye and I said, "Why didn't you give me an A3 instead of that bullshit C2?" That's when I realized the whole system apparently is gamed, and like Maudie's granny would say, fuck 'em if they can't take a joke. Oh, yeah. Well, anyway, it looks like an all-day rain today, and I'm now in a talking mode. Dwayne, I did though proudly discipline myself to no more than 3 female conquests a day, and in all honesty, that was a fairly rare event.
Charles, I've got some time right now, so just tell me about even one event.
Alrighty, are you comfortable? Okay, I was never able to bed down 2 women in the same general area as many of my buddies or friends had. I made a few attempts, but always got clobbered, screamed at, or even run out of places. Anyway, recalling one fine day or evening, I had a hot prospective date with a knockout, luscious female bartender who I just ran into that worked at the Taboo Lounge. She was actually a bartender there. It was located in the old part of Denver. I worked until 8 that night as usual at the frozen food warehouse, and as I punched out, and there's no windows in the damn place, frozen food warehouse, and I was already excited thinking about seeing her at her set time of an hour from now. I walk out the door and I stop dead in my tracks. There in her sweet old 57 Dodge sat a very nice but highly physically demanding nympho who was waiting for me. She was actually a super nice gal. Moreover, I at this point in time, against my upbringing, had now let her pay all expenses for trips, eating out, etc. As what I at first thought was the ultimate woman was now becoming like a job or running marathons at too close an interval. Our sessions were almost always continuous until morning. Maybe I shouldn't technically call her a nymphomaniac just because she would get to the precipice or the edge of a climax but never quite make it. I had always been up to the challenge and I gave her my best shots. Anyway, I told her, I don't know why, I told her I'd follow her home to her workbench. Looking back, I should have just got lost. On this occasion, I quickly got my rocks up, and I immediately jumped up and I hopped into my pants and then ran for my car. I was just pulling away when she came running in the summer twilight with at least her nightgown on and dove spread eagle onto the hood of my car. She was looking at me and crying profusely, but I was motivated and I just kept driving. Thank God she dropped off before I was going too fast. Dwayne, I really did feel like an asshole, but I had made up my mind that I needed to get out of this relationship because it was too demanding of my resources, time, and future opportunities. I could see Dwayne's eyes roll as he giggled slightly. Anyway, the edge was off, and I started thinking, but still stopped by to see the vivacious, gorgeous Ruthie Ray. It wasn't that late, and I knew she had to work until 10 regardless. I tell Ruthie I need to beg off our date, and I sure wanted to spend some time with her, but I just found out my only sister, who I hadn't seen in a few years, would be landing at the Stapleton Airport in nearby Aurora in a little bit for a short layover before switching of planes on her way to California. The bronze beauty from North Omaha just looked me in the eye and said, "I can give you something your sister can't." Well, Dwayne, needless to say, when she finished work at 10 that night, we went upstairs to her room in the old hotel above the lounge.
Was she right, Charles? And did you tell her how much it bothered you to miss seeing Sis?
Yes, Dwayne, and did you know we had some quality time together? And I still made it home around midnight where I resided with my ex-wife. We're in Colorado, my common-law wife. I saw a light on in our bedroom, and the thought entered my mind, what if she is in an extra friendly mood? She had her hair curled, and she was wearing a frilly pink nightgown. In addition, she had a pillow propping up her head as she read with the aid of a reading lamp. Gee, blondes look good in pink. And she didn't give me the third degree about being so late. Dwayne, I just took a deep breath and said to myself, "Go for it, big boy." Dwayne, I'm just pouring the coal to her, and after a while she said, "You've been fooling around on me, haven't you?" I didn't miss a beat, but I was thinking, I know women have sensitive and superior sniffers that are superior to that of a man's, or was it that I wasn't even getting close to getting my rocks? I guess my young ego was big enough to ask why she said that. Well, Dwayne, she just said, "You're using a lot of new moves, and you sure as hell didn't learn them from me."
I suppose the pigs had to get their jollies before they quit.
I didn't open my big mouth because I didn't want to give him the satisfaction of my suppressed laughing over whom he was referring to. Finally, I said, well, I have to admit I later broke down and continued bawling the nymph, but something happened one week.
What was that, Charlie?
Well, Ruthie Ray and her both went to a doctor within days of each other.
This sounds pretty serious, my boy.
It was. The doctor wanted to know if the nymph ran into a horse, and Ruthie Ray looked a little pale and told me, "Charles, you can't fuck like a machine."
Oh, I shouldn't even ask, but what was her physiologic malady then?
Well, Dwayne, I don't know technically, but I recall something about they both had something that was tilted. Anyway, all this behavior sort of caught up with me, Dwayne, as later, after really overdoing it one day, I felt drained for days, maybe my first admitted time of being down. It took me almost a week to recharge, and I must have been depressed or something, like that Peggy Lee song, "Is That All There Is?" Or the thing that had such a high priority at the expense of everything else now left me feeling empty. Dwayne, another stupid thing that kind of brought things into perspective was when about 5 years ago I realized during the middle of things by the things she said, which made me realize that I had been with this conquest over 20 years previously, and what now? Go around or recycle them? I decided it was, I started really doing some serious thinking then. I think it was time for some. Well, anyway, Dwayne, what's next? When I'm in pursuit of some young stuff, do I have to, in all conscience, attempt to get their mother's maiden name to avoid any accidental incest? And now I see Dwayne finally lost it. Son of a bitch, now he spews a mouthful of orange pop all over the inside of my windshield. I learned from Aabye to retrieve some napkins to start wiping that shit off.
Charles, just take me back to the job site in my pickup before it overflows in here. And Maudie's theatrical talents are sure rubbing off on you.
During the short drive, I thought the truth shall set you free, and how years back when I was first married and continually lied and tried to keep my story straight to her many sisters and brothers and all those concerned citizens. My seemingly well-known activities and denial and stress just finally convinced me that the hell with it and tell the dirty truth, and as a result I lost the rest of my credibility. As Maudie would say, glory, hallelujah, what a win-win that simple stress-relieving simplistic method had proved to be. I guess truth is stranger than fiction, and fiction has to make sense, but apparently a perceived bullshitter telling the truth flies right under the radar screen. Yep, I thought, just be truthful, as they sort of roll their eyes in disbelief. Next they start laughing and they walked away, muttering about how full of it I was. Moreover, I guess the fact I'm still thinking about all this long-ago adventure is a sign of my encroaching late middle age. I think about Maudie interviewing the elderly in nursing homes, and I won't be among the majority that claimed when years back, when they were raising hell, they wished they'd have done more of it. Even after my blabberfest, it's still a little earlier than usual when I leave work because of the continuing rain. On the way home, a nearby old familiar watering hole was in my path and beckoning. Upon entering, I soon surprisingly recognized an out-of-character to me, somewhat close neighborhood lady. She and her better half live only about a block and a half away at an angle just across the school playground. Moreover, our homes are visible to one another. I had stopped a few times over the years for rummage sales there way before I knew Maudie existed. A prim and proper lady who I believe has a few years on me now looked a little bedraggled. I tell her I hadn't noticed her motorhome in the driveway or any sales lately. Any rummage sales, and she said that's because there haven't been any since my husband died over a half a year ago. I didn't know what to say in situations like this, so in small talk I mentioned that I had been staying at Maudie's for a while now, and I explained the location of the stucco house, and she's sitting on a bar stool, and she seemed to start fuming while her visibly bloodshot eyes bulged as she looks me up and down. What came out of her mouth admittedly caught me off guard, or as Maudie might say, damn near poleaxed me. She just screamed, "Aren't you ashamed of yourself preying off an old lady?" I may have shaken my head, and it wouldn't have been up and down, and next thing I knew she was crying in her beer. The tears are coming down her cheeks, and she mournfully wails, "I don't know what I'd do if it wasn't for my cats." I I ease my way out without even having a beer and then drive off. I guess some days you can't put up a nickel. I drive around to get in a decent frame of mind because I felt bemused and amused or whatever by that last encounter. Soon I feel I'm ready to go home and make my appearance. I park on the street and I'm about ready to get out when an oncoming, familiar-looking vehicle violently swerves over my way and then abruptly stops, driver's window to driver's window. I can now recognize who it is as she rolls down her tinted window. It just happens to be the ranking love of my life, old girlfriend.
You look okay, Charles.
I'm a bit bewildered and caught off guard. Well, thank you, and you look marvelous as usual.
You're a hell of a man, Charles.
Well, thanks again, sweetheart.
Don't sweetheart me, asshole.
I, at this moment, start to pick up on the fact that maybe she isn't a happy camper as she continues to spew it out.
Just don't ever call me again, pleading that you want one more chance and that you've matured. And to think I'd told some of our friends that I thought about taking you back. My God, you've matured all right for a woman nearly 3 times my age. And I hear you two are an item around town. And no, I'm not changing diapers again.
I attempt to explain, honey, it's not like that, and she isn't even quite twice your age, and oh God, now she screeches her tires until they smoke, and as they fishtail down the road. Oh, I get out of my car thinking years back that I likely would have chased her down as it's fun to make up. I amble up to the front porch steps thinking that Mom said there would be days like this, but not this many. I walk in announcing my presence, and I yell louder, Aabye, I'm home, and I had a rough day. After that, I hear the front door close. As I turn back, I see Maudie walking into the living room. Did I forget to close the door on my way in? She just shrugs her shoulders, and I assume that she had gone out into the front hall from her bedroom that has 2 doors. I make an attempt at small talk, but she seems unresponsive and says she just wants to go lay down. Well, Maudie, it's your castle, baby, and do whatever served you well for all these years. I may have a complex, as I thought she gave me a tired, disgusted look. I see the mail isn't even here yet, but I start my correspondence paper to Darren with a lot of new, never-ending questions. Here, let's see, I'll write it like this. Let's see. Here we go. Darren, a man with your knowledge and being positioned in cutting-edge technology of such vital areas to the world and our country. How's that sound? Pretty intelligent? Let's keep going here. You must attract intelligence from foreign as well as domestic and our own government agents. Excuse my sentence structure and nose problems. An English scholar I ain't. Here's another. Here we go. We'll give him this. Give him another installment of higher priority. Okay, back to the little stories. I think you'll like this. The other soldiers start to ride Johnny about his faithful everyday letter writing, but regardless, take Polaroid pictures of him for him to send back with his letters that they are all laughing about. One day they even snapped one of him walking out of the shower without a towel and naked as a jaybird to send to his girl Linda Lou. Signed, I'll finish this off for now, send them the rest later. Signed, how's this one? I think he's old enough. Dust for Brains, Charlie McCarthy. The mail's a little late today. I guess that happens. So I make a phone call to Auntie to ask some maybe silly personal questions. I didn't even hardly get to start to say anything, and she just starts to screaming. It must be related, all right.
Did you hear what the grave robbers want to do?
I heard about that, Auntie, and please don't lecture me about it. And now she's in a foul mood, and she asked me something to the effect of, what do you want to know now? Not like her usual self, so I thought, well, here, we'll try this. Well, sweet Auntie, I was just curious where Tom and family attended church, and if or why they never adopted little Darren after raising him all those years.
Hell, Charlie, they quit going to church years ago. In fact, they stopped shortly after they were first married, and the heartbreak of the complications at childbirth of their firstborn, the oh-so-sweet tiny little angel, only lived a few hours, and my niece almost followed her little daughter to heaven. I guess my niece couldn't have any children after that. Charles, you You wouldn't think a baby as small as that could do that kind of damage, would you?
I wouldn't think so, but again, you're asking the wrong person. But there must have been some serious complications of some kind.
Charlie, I wasn't in the mood to talk, but you started it. And I've always thought, why the heck didn't they take that sweet little boy Darren to church so he could at least have been exposed and be able to make up his own mind someday about religion? What else did you ask me about again? Oh yes, why the hell didn't they adopt him? Well, near as I can tell, they both went a little daffy after that baby died.
Just how long has Tom's wife, your niece, been gone?
Oh, let's see now. I guess, shortly after Tom's passing.
Gee, that must have been pretty tough on Darren.
Oh, no. Yeah, before the time Darren even graduated from high school, they visibly seemed to, I don't know if they didn't like it, whatever, they just seemed to avoid each other's company.
Aunt, is it all right to ask what your niece died from?
Hell, she's not dead. Rumors are that she moved to some Caribbean island or something and disowned us all. I heard through the grapevine, though, that Darren sends her a huge allowance every few years, but he won't tolerate any talking about her or even the mention of her name.
Well, we just shoot the breeze, a little casual talk, and hoping to get her kind of on an even keel at least, being I pestered her today and called her when she was in a sour mood. Then out of the blue, she recalls an incident her grandmother told her about from many years ago, which shows, according to her, showed people were just as crazy back then as they are today. Apparently, one night a group of women armed with candles, spades, and shovels dug up a feller I believe was called, she said, Tom Dooley. They wanted to check out rumors that he was hung. I didn't ask her for any further information on that deal, but I thank her for the interesting information, as that seems to get me good mileage with her. I laughed to myself about jumping to conclusions about her niece. I might as well continue to speculate that she's probably secluded in a country that doesn't have extradition with the USA. Gee, what kind of a mind have I got? The mail finally gets here, and I don't even get that excited about Darren's messages. But all this correspondence was my brainstorming, like Maudie often tells me. Careful what you wish for, sonny, you might get it. I need to drain the old radiator, and his older house has one bathroom, which is located between the two main floor bedrooms. And I was about to enter, but I thought I caught a faint, eerie sound emanating from Maudie's bedroom. I put my ear to the door, and I could barely detect some intermittent groans. I knock and then open her door a little bit and stuck my head in. And what's the matter, Maudie? Did another niece or nephew pass away? At that moment, she starts talking incoherently, but I finally pick up. Yeah.
You love her, don't you? And I know I'm too old for you.
For the second time today, I'm lost for words. Soon thereafter, she begins putting her words together better, and she tells me she'd been standing by the front door waiting for her honey to come home, and she claims she saw me driving this way clear over on 18th Street, and that she ran out and stood behind a big elm tree like a squirrel would. And then she tells me that, she says, Charles, I heard every word, everything you and that ugly, crazy woman said. And, well, anyway, Maudie, you didn't hear me say I love her, did you?
No, Charles, and I didn't have to.
Well, she was a very important part of my life years ago, but don't you think if we work on it, that we can make life work out? And if we value each other, don't you think anyone else that cares about you and me can learn to care about us too?
Charles, you're real sweet, but you really don't understand women, do you?
I need to go out for a couple beers I'm behind on. Then she reverts to that saying from her so-called nice grandmother about not being out in the poison night air. It's a ways from night, and she is foxy. As before, she said going out in the night, to now being out when it became dark. The first time I heard that, I was on my way out the door, but it hit me so funny at that time that I actually stayed home. This afternoon is like the old days. I'm going out come hell or high water. I went out to an out-of-the-way quiet tavern, and after a couple that didn't dull my senses, I decided to just go home, while still having the thoughts on my mind that 3 women were upset with me this afternoon. Is it just women and each one individually, or could it just happen to be me? I get home, and now Maudie starts in again.
Just who in the hell keeps sending you mail down there every day? And don't they have anything better to do than bother my honey?
I'm glad to see you're feeling better and back to her feisty ways. Well, the letters are from some troubled relative that I am a listening post for, as well as offering any kernels of wisdom. And then at that moment, I run my extended forefinger in a circle around one ear.
I see it runs in the family. And, Charles, on another note, the clinic called and said they could get me in to see my skin doctor tomorrow instead of next week, but we need to call right away to verify.
What the heck, then? Go ahead and call, and as the weatherman says, it probably will continue to rain well into the day tomorrow. I think I'll make contact with Dwayne. I haven't called him for quite a while. He answers on the second ring, and of course, he responds right away.
Oh, that's fine, because we still can't work in the rain, and I miss spending time with you and the queen bee, so can I come with tomorrow if I promise to behave, Dad? Also, maybe we can drive around like the old days and check out some cleanup week piles of treasure while she's at the clinic.
Needless to say, the next morning we pick up Dwayne at a supermarket parking lot, which isn't out of our way. Of course, I never told Maudie of our plans, because I never know for sure what will keep her awake half the night. Right after pushing the reluctant Maudie to move her keister over, Dwayne asks me, or I guess he asked her.
By the way, just how much skin are you going to show your skin doctor?
She grabs both his cheeks and half growls.
Wouldn't you like to know?
I'm pleasantly surprised things don't escalate, and of course then she tells us about how about 5 years back she had nose trouble and told us to strike that. And she had something that didn't ever go away and just got worse, and her skin doctor removed it. And now she comes in and he looks at her beautiful face once a year. We dropped her off and we told her that we would be back in an hour and a half. And we told her either she or we would have to wait on the other. We are on the near north side of town, so we drove along the residential streets and started scavenging. We avoid picking up large items, and we just casually picked over a few trinkets. I have noticed that even though Dwayne isn't quite 40, that his arms soon won't be long enough for him to read the newspaper. But what a pair of binocular eyeballs. What imagination that man has. Over the years I have seen him. I'm amazed how at 2 blocks ahead and a small, mostly hidden piece of an item is exposed, and he'll correctly identify what it is more often than not. And then he starts yelling, now what? Then he says, whoa, back her up there, Charles. And I must have backed up a good 100 feet, and we just sat at the once passed pile. I don't see anything out there. Finally, the smiling Dwayne gets out and retrieves the past prime bouquet of flowers with vase and all, and he looks at his watch and asked if I could get into her house, and her house is locked and could get in, and I says, oh yeah, but it'll take me about 5 minutes.
Right there, Houdini, as that will give me time to create a little appropriate prose.
I bet they're Hemingway-like, and mine is not to ask what you write or why. Mine is to bite my lip and laugh or cry. Upon arriving back at her house, I quickly open her locked door. Dwayne rushes in and sets the wilted flowers on her kitchen table. I try to get a peek at his note, and he grabs me.
Charles, quick, we'll be late picking up your woman.
We race back to the clinic and find her in the main floor waiting room.
Where in the hell were you, jackasses? I've been waiting for an hour.
Baloney, it was more like 5 minutes. And she looked shocked and says, how did you know that? We start our drive home, and can you believe we don't even try to get her to spring for an early dinner? We all enter the house, and Dwayne steers me right for the basement as he tells me that Maudie will need time to check something out down, or tell her that we need to check something out down in her basement. After down there, I asked Dwayne, how does this all fit in your game plan?
We need time for her to find the flowers and fully digest a little note.
It didn't take too long before we hear louder and louder growling, and now pounding feet, and I think she's pounding the hell out of the kitchen table. And then she starts screaming, uh-oh, I think I know what's coming next. Dwayne, we better try to settle her down before she blows a gasket or the neighbors call the cops. We reluctantly make our way back upstairs while trying to avoid the glass from the broken vase. She's running around the house with a piece of paper held over her head. And I hear her say,
how did that old slut get in my house? I'll kill that bitch.
I half laughed and tell her, settle down there, girlie, and she now stands with a crumpled note in her hand. And Now I see Dwayne's going to start jacking his jaws.
What did it say?
I grabbed the note from her hand in a relaxed flash. I run into an adjoining room and I start reading. Congratulations, Daddy. Our little bundle of joy is due in 3 months, and I'm so glad I heard you're working for a rich lady so you can support us with all our love. Love, Tootsie. Maybe I'm getting soft, but I'm finding myself half mad. Dwayne, isn't this a little over the top?
Well, aren't we keeping her blood vessels cleaned out and at least pressure tested?
I think Maudie now picks up on the possible scam, and she runs over and hugs me while putting her head on my chest and looks up with me with those sad eyes and says, honey, take Dwayne home. I'm going to go lay down and catch my second wind. Another few days of work and correspondence fly by. A lot of people would be bothered by the lag time. Maybe that's what inspired the Pony Express. If I had enough guts, I'd ask Maudie if she wrote any segments of that short-lived, faster delivery of the U.S. mail in the mid-1800s. Who knows what her response might be. I'd be willing to bet that there are times that both Darren and I contemplate our messages after the fact of mailing. I do admire Darren's being a good sport by having patience in this exercise. Boy, I can now see his latest offering is extra lengthy. Goes on to say that I can be assured that he is he's very security conscious because Big Brother also covets. Oh, what now? Oh, I can't read his writing. Writing code, whatever. Oh, Big Brother covertly spends huge amounts of their and our mutual interest. Also covertly spends huge amounts on their and our mutual interest. I mean, I'm getting it. But we have on occasion bumped heads almost disastrously. And goes on to say, Charles, you realize if you were my sanctioned shrink, this would all be privileged information, and mum's the word. Also, an attorney is taught early on that you don't ask a question in court, a question you don't already know the answer to. So being you indirectly asked, I have a legitimate reason to bumble and ramble. It is almost ironic that DNA relies on replication as I did for my very existence. My dad, my donor, my God, myself, or at any rate Tom, was very concerned and ran a ton of tests on both of us. I admit he was puzzled that I had extraordinary, superior perception abilities, but failed to match him in some other areas. We wondered what was the cause, a slight blur, so to speak, or our real lives experiences or so-called environment. And Tom and I were also very concerned and bewildered by Clyde because it was like he had those old 3D glasses or some special sense to recognize Tom and I as possessing the same makeup. We did find out that what Clyde lacked in some areas, he had plenty in others, like my ability to detect deception. If our government knew I was confiding with you on this, they would just combobulate. And boy, does it feel good to share after all these years. You know, Tom probably shouldn't have let our government check my special abilities, but he knew from working with some through the years that the Russians did a lot earlier and the U.S. later to catch up in case that was important. Besides, Tom was flawed and that he just had to show off. And Tom and I also talked about the fact that our government would have been tempted to kidnap me if Dad and I weren't so important to them in offensive and defensive areas. Charles, we had to raise hell and go nuts on them so as to keep them from asking never-ending time and favors of me. I know you're worn out with our almost juvenile, in a sense, almost daily messaging, and I am too, but my headaches are of shorter duration, bearable and less frequent, which is something I couldn't explain to you. But when one starts now, I'd just say this soon will pass also. Charles, could we cut down our correspondence to once a week with a deadline of every Wednesday? Yours truly, Saturated. Oh, P.S. You forgot to send another segment on Johnny, and I missed that silly stuff. Oh, boy. I'm glad he made the move for less messaging first, and my headache's better, too. But I'm primed, so I might as well get an early start on my next edition. I sometimes think I would even bitch if they hung me with a new rope. I vigorously agree with Darren's new proposed schedule, with the caveat that if either feels it's necessary, by all means make contact. I then relate a Maudieism. She told me even if she wasn't real up on something, they still couldn't sell her. I hope I understood that one, and Darren had mentioned an attorney shouldn't ask a witness a question he doesn't know the answer to. Well, Maudie told me she was a witness for a lady friend of hers in getting her marriage from a drinker dissolved. I guess that's how they did it with divorces many years ago. And apparently Maudie was on the stand, and probably in frustration, the judge started asking her questions, and I guess he asked her if her friend's husband drank. She dutifully had replied, "Oh yes, Your Honor." I guess then he had, I've heard this story quite a few times from more than some of her friends also. I guess then the judge looked down at her and he'd asked, just about how much does he drink? She looked up at the judge and said, "Oh, about like you do." I would sure like to ask Darren if our government knows a lot of his history, however, I better not go there, at least not yet. Let's see, I write, here's the rest of the story. Johnny's army buddies giggled as they handed him his nude photo. Johnny quickly cut in half and proudly said, "Heck, I'll just send the top half with my letter to Dad and the bottom to Linda Lou." Well, the best of plans go astray on occasion, and there was a little mix-up. Linda Lou got her letter and she read it, and then she looked at the top half of the picture and said, "Yep, that's my Johnny." Later that day, his dad anxiously opened up his letter and read it, and then he looks at the bottom half of the photo, smiles, and proudly says, "Yep, that's my Johnny. Big long nose and never combs his hair. Your buddy, Charlie." That evening, I also checked in on Harry's so-called secure phone line. He answered, and I said I thought only our government, might have secure phone lines.
"Charlie, quit thinking and you might be right. Charles, I'm cleared to be in the inner circle at the Big Dig as an interested observer for Tim's family."
Harry, do you expect anyone representing Tom and his family will be there?
"I know their interests are known, but I don't have a clue, Charlie. But I would think some attorney or someone would covet the TV and larger-than-life public event."
Who would that be, or who would give that any okays?
"Again, a good question, Charles, and I don't know, and frankly, I don't give a damn." "The hell I don't, Charlie. You better believe it, Mama, that I will be watching you. Switching gears, Charles, I've been thinking of all the times Uncle Sam has taken world-important actions, right and wrong, and some are very debatable. We even were instrumental in toppling democracies that we didn't like or go for. All thanks all of us just wanting a little of their own oil in favor of dictatorships. Charlie, we will all make mistakes and poor choices in life, sometimes based on faulty assumptions and slanted information from numerous special interests. But Charles, we the U.S., warts and all, are still the best game in town."
You know, I like to play the devil's advocate, even if he doesn't need one, although you got me on that diatribe, you sweet-talking devil. We jabbered some more gibberish, and after he hung up, I feel a little twang of guilt for not being more forthcoming on the details that a good investigator or detective desires and sometimes needs. At this moment, as the mood hits me, I stick my thumbs behind imaginary suspenders, and in Maudie style, I arch my back, stick my chin out, and I dance and jig around, saying, "Well, Darren, you may be futuristic and perceptive, and Harry, you may be cunning and shrewd, but old Charlie is pretty well positioned and just a bit manipulative." Oh, damn, Maudie must have witnessed my little performance, as I see her walking away, muttering something to the effect that now he's even stealing my A stuff. Chapter 21, My Prayer. Coming back down to earth, I have to admit I have hope, as Harry has hinted of searching to find a balance. When I first met him, I sensed he was willing to struggle with conflicting principles, because thank God he is an independent thinker. Speaking of thanking God, just maybe my old heart is getting so hard it's cracking, and I'm long past due to attempt it. Dear Lord, I know the good book says you hear all prayer, and I don't begin to understand your systems or how you manage it all, but I never want to dilute or take away from others less fortunate, real or imagined, of the world. So I didn't want to clog the system with my frivolous and long-winded prayers. First, I want to thank you, Lord, for keeping my close associates, Margie, family, and me out of harm's way. Moreover, thank you for my good timing and luck and circumstances. In addition, Lord, Grant me the strength and wisdom to handle the responsibilities in whatever you and the world presents me and Harry with. And finally, I also want to thank you for turning Mr. Perceptive Darren around. We know in the past he was a willing puppet and was blind, but now he's beginning to see. P.S. God continue to bless the USA. Amen. As the day of the I feel better. As the day of the impending excavation draws near, I'm feeling some increasing anticipation from our local newspaper accounts. I can fully understand that some correspondents can use fancy words, even though they still don't know a damn thing about what they're writing. Anyway, I do get the feeling there's plenty of infighting going on over procedural matters. The night before the event is finally here. I call Harry.
It's getting to be like a zoo down here. Charlie, you know, in 99.9% of things, something on this order, a couple qualified people go about retrieving blood or whatever to check for arsenic or drugs or do whatever they do. But this deal is multi-dimensional, baby, and it's growing independent animal. Charlie, they are now in the process of securing and roping off the area, and I heard the police chief might even have some trained horses which are ready for crowd control. Hell, Charlie, I haven't seen that since my New Orleans days, and they say it's harder to get a room anywhere in the area than when the World Series was here.
I suppose there are even correspondence people from Timbuktu.
You're right about that, Charlie. I think I've heard that a time or two before. Charles, dig this. The city is crying about all the overtime and unfunded costs and the need for more police now and the future. Charlie, we both know all the new money that is flowing into this town and the multiplier effect and what an economic windfall. Although that part of the equation isn't featured, I swear all the rubberneckers and curious of the world have converged on us. And it's surreal or something. I can't put my finger on it.
Well, I'm taking off work with my friend Dwayne tomorrow morning to just sit home and concentrate in front of the television with a cold one. And do you suppose Tom will be smiling?
Charles, someone is supposed to be in the know told me that there are many variables and ranges, depending on his condition at the time of the burial and a host of environmental issues in his 2 years of waiting. Charles, the media likely hasn't let you know the last-minute possibilities of a judge's order coming in to protect the sensibilities of the viewers. So stay tuned and don't say I didn't warn you of that possibility.
I hope you're wrong on that, but I'm not naive enough not to realize when you're dead, you really don't have a lot of rights. And I have read that Tom's representatives still haven't asked for any concessions except continuous TV coverage and minimum burial site disruption, or get the necessary samples, and close.
Charles, I also hear from reliable sources that a few as 10 from each group will be allowed for the real up-and-close and personal stuff. And I'm proud of you, kid. You're still getting smarter.
Well, Harry, at least at this time tomorrow, we'll all be over but the shouting and the wait on the DNA results.
Charles, I'll remind you of that statement every now and again.
We say our goodbyes, and then I prepare for a good night's sleep. I wake up early the morning of the show time, and I'd actually had a hard time falling asleep last night because I didn't do a good job of it even when in dreamland. My mind again begins to wander. I hadn't received any recent correspondence from a seemingly composed Darren. But then I guess we had mutually agreed on that anyway. I can't help but wonder what all the newfound attention is going to cause. I thought, just think, the very successful businessman, Tom, who turns out to be the later convicted killer, has now become a far more well-known personality and commodity than when he was alive. The actual retrieval process is set to commence at 10:30 this morning, and it should be all wrapped up by noon. I'd heard that. The television pre-event is set to begin at, can you believe, 9 a.m.? I just wish I had the concession rights. Well, Maudie and I had our usual coffee with toast routine, and although she didn't seem very enthused with the upcoming event, and she just tells me that she wasn't that interested or afraid of the dead. It's the live ones that she worries about. I'm sitting in front of the tube with my pen, paper, and peanut butter cookies with a glass of full power milk sitting beside me, while a can of beer eyeballs me. as it finally starts. Here we go. Okay, a reporter is trying to hold his mic up to family members with little luck. The mood is somber, much like a funeral. After a bunch of commercial breaks, they start marching out the experts. There are technical interviews with attorneys and MDs and PhDs and you name it. There are some other titles that I've never heard before, and of course some more DNA number crunching. I admit it's pretty interesting, and I learned some new technical stuff. Boy, people are now pouring in like water did the Titanic. Wow, time flies, and the moment's almost here. It's almost showtime. I see the mass of people now behind the roped-off section let out a cheer as I see some temporary black smoke in the near distance. I guess appears they're warming up a small backhoe machine. The group of VIPs appears small in comparison to the huge throngs pulsing in the distance. Still, there must be a good 50 near the television camera crew. At this instant, the digging machine is signaled over, and after being squared up, it gingerly starts skimming off some green sod. Yep. And then it begins depositing the grass or sod in one spot. I see a couple well-dressed gents in tux-like suits. They look out of place, and as one is a regular full-length spade in hand, and the other a long piece of rod, much like an 8-foot piece of rebar for reinforcing concrete. The people, there's Harry with one group of people in on the inner circle. The group closes in on a small backhoe, and they're fairly constrained, but when the machine starts to get into some serious digging, the people behind the roped-off area are going nuts. Well, this is intriguing. This is the best that I can describe it. I believe the operator is being extra careful or dramatically stretching it out. I remember they said for the convenience of the technicians, they were going to excavate the hole extra wide and long. By golly, one is now probing with his rod, and he finally seems to hit something solid. Now he signals the operator and spreads out his palms as one about 2 feet above the other. And even the distance folks have now seemed to settle down. And I'm getting a kick out of this. Moreover, quite a few people in the distance, they're crowded around the ones with little portable television sets. Okay, now I believe the backhoe is being directed to make some more precise cuts or moves. At this moment, someone carries over a couple of 2-foot by about 5-foot pieces of plywood, and they have some stakes. They're pre-nailed. In addition, the stakes extend a couple feet below the plywood. Oh, I see. The workers hop in a hole, and then someone hands them the plywood, which they now have. Now they place the sheets on each side of the concrete casket, and now with the aid of a short-handled sledgehammer, they pound them in, pound on the stakes. Now they're both-handed short-handled shovels. I can now see dirt's a-flying, and the boys are getting after it. One must have at this instant asked for a flat-bladed shovel, and I swear I can hear the sound of scraping concrete. Maybe it's my imagination. No, now at this moment, one is even given a broom with a couple crowbars, which are accompanied by some small pieces or wedges. One looks pissed, and soon an apparatus with chains is brought over as being, I think it's attached to the backhoe bucket. I surmise that'll be for lifting off the concrete cover. Oh, what's this now? I see someone with an escort of sheriff's deputies has some papers in his hand. He comes over and he's talking to the television cameraman, I can see that. I can't see that direct. Damn it! Now they're taking a commercial break. This is a screw-up? I thought this was supposed to be continuous coverage. Maudie, come over here and watch now. Now the moment of truth is approaching. If these revenue makers ever finish their thing, I guess it's a good time to wash down my remaining cookies with milk and a beer chaser or two. Seemed like forever, but maybe it's only a couple minutes or two. Maybe it's only a couple minutes now the live coverage starts up again. A television spokesman is now apologizing for the break. And he explains that it was the result of a last-minute restraining order on proper procedures. Spokesman is trying to explain that after the concrete cover was removed and had been set alongside the excavated area, that technicians have now made provisions for mandated adjustments. So a weighted at the edges white fabric cover could be slid under the metal casket covers and dropped over the body by the white rubber-gloved and dust-masked technicians. He tells us there is no previous protocol for a highly recorded, ever-evolving happening such as this. I see he's reading from a sheet that states this compromise will allow the technicians to retrieve the required DNA samples on site while protecting the dignity of the dearly departed. Let's see. The television spokesman tells us the dropping of the weighted fabric cover is about to take place. I see the technicians look contorted, and I laugh to myself, wondering whom or who is being protected by the dust masks, the DNA or them. I see a couple satchels, and I presume that they hold their retrieval tools or whatever, and now they're set close to the boys, and the whole production is now reminding me of one of those big-time magician shows. A signal now is given, apparently, and they drop the covering cloth. There's a loud reverberating sound, and the techs about jump out of their skins. In fact, one of them scampers out and is visibly shaken. The remaining one is directed to do his duty, and now he's reaching in and up to his shoulder, as if pulling a difficult calf from a cow. He soon also jumps out and he runs off, as some people grab at him like defensive backs trying to arm tackle a big fullback. At this moment, an older, agitated, orange-hatted man jumps in. I guess he's going to take control, and he starts lifting the covers, and the television cameras poorly shows a weighted white drop cloth and appears to be lying at the bottom of the coffin that had been previously stripped of its fancy lining and, more importance, the body. The view is very fleeting, as someone has now put a hand over the lens of the TV camera. I hear yelling and cursing, and some are screaming, "Close! Close the damn thing!" I see the distant crowd is pushing on their restraints, and I yell for Maudie to quickly bring my portable radio. I leave the now turned what the hell's the matter with that television coverage? Well, the radio is still, radio's my lifeline now. There must have been some embedded reporters broadcasting, at least on the radio. Some people are screaming, I can hear this, but cover up, and the voice of some young girls say, "Hey man, he is resurrected, and any damn fool can see no one's home." At the present, I just can't believe what I'm watching here. At the present, I also watch the again activated television as fire truck pumpers are spraying high-pressure water on the people, the crowd, who have apparently they've breached the lines and are attempting to storm the gravesite. There is now a visual state of panic, and security is attempting to herd the VIP people safely away. My heart skips a few beats as Harry gets his 5 minutes of fame. I know him well enough that I can pick up that he is trying to act as usual unflappable self, although as he talks on television his passion shows through, and he finally just throws his hands up and says, "The idiots blew it, and they just lost any credibility they had. What the hell, it is what it is, and that's it," as he walks off. Moreover, I can see some suits talking on walkie-talkies, or maybe they're awfully large cell phones. The television spokesperson surprisingly says that he is pulling the pin by closing up shop because of administrative directives. I hope that boy can keep his job. Maudie, did the coffin look empty to you? She just shakes her head in an affirmative fashion, and I find myself doing the same. I am currently getting a little comic relief as I hear someone interviewed on the radio say, "What the hell is going on? Politics as usual and more cover-up, or did the scaredy cat see a ghost and thought the public couldn't handle it?" I have to give a radio personality credit, as now he's cornered apparently a supposedly high-ranking official, but of course the official spins his questions while begging off, but apparently promising an official statement is soon to be forthcoming and to just hang tight. The reporter, he's a pretty good boy, he keeps pressing on, and the official keeps saying no comment and didn't want to unduly speculate. I, at this moment, have mixed feelings about being here at home and being away from the action, energy, and emotion. Moreover, I am currently even anxiously awaiting a message from Darren, while wondering what he'll have to say, if he even continues to communicate with me. I refrain from attempting to call Harry, as I'm sure he has a full plate and probably moving around faster than a cat on a hot tin roof. Actually, I doubt if Harry will much pick up on his somewhat methodical pace. I guess I'm in limbo like a lot of others. In addition, I should have realized that the world is still turning, so I might as well try to relax. just continue on that path to become a cynical old fart who has a long memory and hadn't quite seen it all. I do, of course, keep a wary eye on the supper time and 10 o'clock news. I will be keeping a wary eye on that. And still, there's not much of substance as I watch the news, but there is plenty of finger pointing, passing the buck, and plenty of blame to go around. Possibly the most revealing and surreal thing was a lighted nighttime view of the gravesite, which is complete with a couple armed guards. Wow, there's a large metal grate over the still excavated gravesite that's now surrounded with yellow crime scene tape. Maudie now comes back into the room, and she's rubbing her eyes.
Now the damn fools are closing the barn door after the horse is out.
I'm mildly surprised that there are still a fair amount of people who are lingering around while coming and going to the camp that is located out in the distance. In addition, there are a few of them who are holding lighted candles and carrying signs, but I can't quite make them out in this light. The next morning, I'm disappointed because our local newspaper still doesn't, or probably haven't been given anything, not nary a bone for us to chew on. Maybe tomorrow, as Maudie would say, if they eat enough beans, they will finally get some wind back in their sails. Well, I don't want to be late for my afternoon short work stint with Dwayne, so I'd better get going so that I can bring home a slice of bacon. Later that afternoon, after I get home, I finally received a much-anticipated response from Darren. I quickly decipher, and it seems generally upbeat because he mentioned some new, hard-fought scientific breakthrough. After that, he generically rambled about the fact that knowledge is power, and then he doesn't even hint or give a clue on what they've been doing. Let's see, at this instant, he goes on to say that he needs me to stay focused on keeping him sane or at a minimum manageable crazy. Signed, I'll try not to add to your burdens, Darren. And then P.S. I sometimes find myself giggling at any time, day or night, over the stupid ending to the story about the wealthy business tycoon who had been there and done it all, and whose only excitement left in life was the novelty shop people that came up with something new for him every Saturday. Charles, please send this tycoon more. At this moment, look at the postmark date that was located on his mailings, and I guess it was composed pre-fiasco at the cemetery. But currently knowing that Darren is, to some degree, might not visibly become involved in this process anyway. Well, I'll have something to anticipate whether he makes any comments on the disinterment of Tom or lack thereof. I wait until after supper to try my first post-event phone call to Harry. I'm relieved to get through, and the first thing out of his mouth is almost predictable.
The idiots blew it, Charlie. You can't insult people's intelligence like that.
I agree, and lean back to just listen to the old master.
Charlie, even Barney Fife of Mayberry television fame had it right when he said, nip it in the bud. They should have just opened the damn thing to let everybody just scratch their ass. Charles, I was so pissed. I was just living and cursing and kicking dirt. I didn't think I could get that wild anymore. Charles, my best guess, the shock or unexpected just caused their emotions or adrenaline to overrun their brain, or else worse yet, their paternalistic attitude that if unsure, don't let the kiddies in on it. If I would have been in charge, heads would have rolled. After everyone watching television saw it was empty and some idiots start yelling, close! Close it up! Charles, everyone in my camp, whatever camp I'm in, feels like they got the old 1-2 punch. One to the solar plexus that took their wind, and then one to the chin, and they're still punch-drunk. Charles, you and I, because of our unique position and knowledge, have a pretty good idea of why and when Tom moved out.
Early on, we both echoed.
Charles, I wonder if it's time for me to retire, as I've seen it all now.
Harry, there's no quitting you, and the best and most important things are yet to come, and you've only just begun. Besides, I and we need you, and you still have miles to go. Miles to go.
Yeah, kid, that's easy for you to say. And keep the faith and call me tomorrow.
Some personal thoughts on where I ended this story. I probably still have miles to go. I can hope so. But personally think that being I never want things or stories to end, that this story has elements akin to the hugely successful 1960s fugitive television series. Thank you, Carl-Aabye.
Back cover Michael-J-Steele has life experiences the author, Carl-Aabye, respects, and he said, "Wow, an Aabye drama." To paraphrase, "Welcome to my parlor," said the elderly siblings to the more than opportunistic home repair boys. Aabye believes some damn stereotypical molds need to be shattered. In Jack Nicholson style, can you handle this scenario? Savor and enjoy this widening of human perspectives and encompassing possibilities. P.S. If you would like a copy of one of Carl-Aabye's other books, Patriot Act Gone Awry or Terrorist Among Us, contact carl-aabye at yahoo.com. carl-aabye at yahoo.com or www.myspace.com/carl-aabye. Or you could also go to carl-aabye-books.com. And I would like to give special thanks to my son Corey Helm for, I'm a little biased here, but I thought it was a dandy cover to this book. Thank you.
Meet Marty and Clyde in Carl-Aabye's latest book, Savants-Melody-of-Mystery. I guarantee that once you meet Marty and Clyde, you won't be able to forget them.
Hello, I'm author Carl-Aabye. Google Savants Melody of Mystery or my name, Carl, A-A-B-Y-E, and I bet you would be surprised with what you find.
Remember, folks, to check out one of Carl-Aabye's other books, Terrorist Among Us and Patriot Act Gone Awry, or his new Aabye drama, Savants Melody of Mystery, at Zandro's Bookstore in beautiful downtown Fargo.